Nick Miller of AWS, thanks for your time today. It's great to talk to you. What are some of the challenges you see agencies deal with when they're building out DevSecOps environments and they're trying to implement DevSecOps practices? Welcome, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you step back before the implementation and say, what's the motivation to move to DevSecOps, right? That key motivator for DevSecOps approach is to really leverage the agility to adopt new emerging technologies and innovations to deliver better products and services to your customer, right? To almost transform that customer experience. And so when I think about the challenges that are facing federal agencies in this space, a lot of it actually starts with the cultural impediments and the procurement frameworks that almost encumber the ability for some of these agencies to move as fast as they'd like to implement DevSecOps in cloud. And so, I start with that as kind of the macro challenge that agencies are really facing to leverage the agility that cloud and AWS bring to them.
The cultural impediments are where I'll go next, but I do want to talk about the procurement framework aspect that you mentioned too, Nick. The cultural impediments, in many cases, government leaders tell me, are harder for them to deal with than the technological pieces because it involves changing people's minds. What change management techniques have you seen that may be different than other types that work in DevSecOps environments? Or is it the same kind of change management principles that apply universally?
So change management principles, I think, are really interesting, right? When I look back at the history of technological innovation, and there's great literature, around like the innovator's dilemma or things like that. But when I look back at this, often the introduction of new technology is what actually drives that change, right? And so you kind of nailed it. The cultural change is harder. What I love that we're doing with AWS Marketplace, which is our service to kind of transform how enterprises find, buy, and deploy third party software, is we're giving our federal agencies a lever, a technology introduction lever to actually pivot around and drive that transformational change without sacrificing the reasons those frameworks and those cultural things were put in place and actually enhancing it, like enhancing the speed, enhancing the governance, enhancing this oversight. Even if the first thought is, wow, this feels like it could be risky, it's actually counterintuitive. And we're giving the organization a lever to adopt and apply new technology to this cultural change they're all wrestling with. That's a really powerful concept, and it makes me super excited about what we're trying to do to bring to the government to help them leverage DevSecOps.
The procurement framework issue that you alluded to, tell me about the nuts and bolts challenges that you've seen there and potential ways that agencies can try to solve that.
Yeah, so if you think about DevSecOps, right, it's really this fast approach to bring in new tools, security baked in, and getting the product teams and the operations teams and the security teams all working as a consistent team to deliver capability and value, right? In that, you have a tool chain where you might have different developer tools and partners that AWS has, like a GitLab or a JFrog, right? For some of the DevOps management, then you might be layering on security tools. And each of these, if you have small DevOps teams, may require incremental licensing. And if each of those incremental licenses is a new procurement action, you're dead in the water to really harness the speed and agility of cloud and realize the promise of DevSecOps, right? And so you have to think about what is the enduring playbook we have to bring in these new innovations in a framework that allows us to move fast while meeting all of the procurement requirements with the government. And so we work really hard with a number of government contracting officers, forward-leaning people who see the challenge of kind of the industrial age process, see the customer experience that these newer employees are expecting both on the mission workload, but also on the procurement side, right? Like most young procurement officers, their entire life is digital procurement, and then they're thrown into the government system. And so we work really hard with them to rationalize how do digital marketplaces work and how can they fit within the regulatory framework of the FAR? Because I think it's really important to do both. The principles of the FAR are really sound. We need to apply them to these modern digital economy, digital acquisition approaches that are being delivered in industry. And AWS Marketplace is a leading cloud marketplace doing that for the third party software ecosystem, which fundamentally is driving our ability to leverage DevSecOps. So it's super exciting time.
You kind of answered where I wanted to go next, so let's keep going that direction. And what I was going to ask you was, as you start these conversations with COs, are those conversations starting with how do we make what we need to get fit the FAR, or how do we make the FAR fit what we need to get? Like, I know it maybe is a chicken or egg question, but I wonder how those conversations start. And the reason I ask that is because I think it's helpful to understand then how to shape those conversations to get to the goal that people have within the agencies, which is to get the software that they need and to build it in a secure way.
Yeah, so I spent 20 years on the mission IT side of the business, right? Deployed downrange in Afghanistan, working with soldiers at the edge as their IT professional. Deployed into Iraq, kind of at the enterprise, managing the enterprise network and trying to deliver that enterprise capability. And then working, at Arlington Cemetery, helping launch DoD's first iOS application, right? And so I really bring that mission mindset to bear. And I'm not a procurement expert, but I've learned it, right? And so I would offer one, all of the government needs to get smarter engaging with their procurement expertise so that it's more of a relationship of how can we get this done versus, no, right? And then two, on that conversation with the KO, that initial conversation, I'm looking to validate their concerns, right? Because having talked to hundreds of different contracting officers, they're all coming at the problem with a specific requirement that might be delivered, and they're trying to meet that, right? And there's this new piece of technology they're not familiar with. And so it's really about baselining them on what makes them concerned about doing this. And then how do we help them rationalize that the control they expect and need is there and they can meet their obligations under Competition and Contracting Act or the Federal Acquisition Streamlining Act. Those two things are in tension, right? And we're supposed to meet both of those principles. How do we think about that? How do we rationalize it? And it really is helpful to have that initial, here is a specific requirement of bounded software, which if you deliver that to me, KO, my DevOps mission for customer experience X, Y, or Z goes really well. Because then you're not worried about this like unbounded, what if somebody makes $1 billion purchase through the marketplace, right? It's like, well, no one wants that. I don't want that, actually. I think fair competition is really good. I think, small business participation is really good, right? We have these leadership principles at AWS that very align with those things. Let us show you how we can meet that with the technology platform that gives you an ability to even meet them at a better pace and cadence.
Nick, it's great to talk to you. I really appreciate your insight. Thanks for your time.
Oh, I love it, Francis. I'd be remiss to say our team loves what we're doing at AWS Marketplace. If you want to learn more, reach out, find me on LinkedIn, connect with your AWS account executive, connect with Karasoft, who is helping sponsor this event. Really great, and would love to share learnings more in person.